welcome to Pandemic Parenting. I am your host, Greg Freeberry. And today we have a very special guest, Florence Ann Romano. Florence Ann was a nanny for about 15 years, so she's worked with a lot of different kids, a lot of different families, and so she has a very unique perspective because she's been a part of a bunch of different family units. So she's learned a lot along the way, and she's ready to share that knowledge with you. And now she's a speaker and an advocate for tribe building. So she's going to come on the show today and talk about how to build a tribe, what exactly is your tribe, and how to find people to make part of your tribe. And we also talk about self-care tips for parents and adults, in particular mental health, especially during these times of pandemic and stress and all that. So you definitely don't want to miss this one. It's going to be a great one. And as always, if you haven't visited my website yet, go to think&evolve.academy, where you can find blog posts about education and the education field, or you could potentially hire me as a tutor or mentor for your child if you'd like. So go ahead and check it out if you'd like to learn more about me and my business. And also check out my Instagram at think.and.evolve, where I share funny memes, informational posts about education, and also little reels with my own ideas. I just shared a great one about Chick-fil-A the other day, so if you like Chick-fil-A, go check that one out. All right, well, without further ado, let's get into it. I give you Florence Ann Romano. All right, hello and welcome to Pandemic Parenting. I am your host, Greg Freeberry, and today on the show, I have childcare advocate Florence Ann Romano. So Florence Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, we were just talking about how in Chicago the weather's nice for today, but maybe not always, because I'm in LA, so I get a little bit of better weather.
Yeah, a lot of better weather.
So usually I just like to start the show just asking you a few like fun personal questions just to help the audience get to know you a little bit. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we'll start with a really easy one. First one is, what's your favorite color?
Oh gosh, if I'm picking a favorite color to wear, it's black. But if I am looking for a color that's going to make me happy, it's usually some sort of yellow.
Okay, yellow. I think yellow would look good on you. It's probably your color. You get good complexion for that.
And pink. I have to say, I'm a pink girl too in terms of clothing. But yeah, I would say, those are probably my three favorite.
Okay, amazing. All right, and like, who's the main person that you turn to when you need advice?
My mom.
All right, your mom's full of good wisdom, I'm sure.
She is. She's the go-to for all of us. I'm the oldest of four, so everyone's bending her ear for sure.
Okay, that's awesome. And what's a guilty pleasure of yours?
Bravo. I am an avid Bravo watcher. I love the Housewives franchise. I'm loyal to New Jersey, and I was to New York for a while, but now it's really mostly New Jersey that I watch.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, my mom's all about those shows as well.
Yeah.
And then there's one like something about a ship or something. I don't know if that's on Bravo too.
Below Deck.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that one as well.
That's not one of mine, but I have a lot of friends who also watch that. So Bravo is a guilty pleasure for sure.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like you and my mom would get along pretty well.
Oh yeah, I could talk to her for hours, no problem.
All right, and then how about, when was the last time you felt inspired and why?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'd say it probably was a few days ago. So I sit on the board of Lurie Children's Hospital here in Chicago. And one of my best friends texted me and said that a girl that she knows, her son is going through treatment at Lurie Hospital right now, and sent me pictures of the little boy and the mom. And she said, just to put, a name with a face of, the money that you raise for this hospital actually is going to help, these faces. And it touched my heart because, you can get caught up in the fundraising and just, getting the dollars in and doing the work, and you forget sometimes about the mission. So that moment definitely brought me back to center.
Wow, that's really incredible, and that's really cool that you actually got to see the money at work and how it's helping people.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for answering my questions.
Sure.
Let's get into it.
Let's do
All
it.
right. So I know you spent many years as a nanny, and now
Yes.
you've kind of gotten into being a children's author and a speaker and a philanthropist and
Right.
a childcare advocate. So how did that like all come about? What was your journey there?
Oh, the journey, quite the journey it was. So I was a nanny for 15 years, and I started as a mother's helper at the age of 12. And that was basically the catalyst to me becoming a babysitter, like a lot of young girls do. And then I just fell in love with it, and continued as a nanny through college, through a portion of adulthood. Even when I went to college, I would still be nannying and still going to class. I lived in LA for a bit after college, and same thing. But then I always say that you stay until the wind changes. It's a Mary Poppins quote. And the wind changes for a lot of different reasons. And for me, it felt like it was time to move on to other passion projects. And so when I retired from being a nanny, I wrote my children's book, Nanny and Me. And it's a story told from the perspective of a child about what happens when your parents go to work and who takes care of you, that transition. And that really was the kind of the starter for me doing a lot of media and talking about childcare advocacy. And so I've really enjoyed that aspect of it on the other side of nannying, where I'm still connected to families and still connected to children, but doing it in a different way. And now, most recently, my second book is going to, which is not a children's book, but it's going to talk about village and how important village is, and kind of how to get directions to that village, and whether or not you have children shouldn't mean that you get a village or you don't. And so that book comes out in February of next year. So it's been busy, it's been a whirlwind, but I'm honored to be able to do what I love.
Awesome. That's a really cool story. And I love that you talked about like the winds of change. And then, when you just feel like you need to move on to the next thing, then you go, you feel it into
Right.
it, like your intuition. Right.
Right.
And I also love that you talked about your book, because that was like the next question I was going to ask you. So the saying goes, it takes a village, right? So
Right.
what does that mean to you, and why is it so important?
I like that saying. I've always liked that saying. It takes a village, but I feel that it is a little ambiguous. People talk about how it takes this group of people in order to survive or raise children or thrive or whatever it might be. But how do you form that village? Sometimes you're born into it. I'm from an old school Italian family. We had lots of cousins and lots of people around all the time. So I was lucky to have a built-in village for all of my life. But there are people that are not born into that. And they deserve to have a village too. They deserve to be supported. They deserve arms around them. So this idea of village is really about selecting the people that you have in your life for specific purposes, but then also identifying you and what you bring to the table for other people and their villages. So I think it's a reciprocal kind of conversation, and it should be, at least. And it takes some self-exploration too, but you have to put in the work also to be able to find these villages that sustain you and fulfill you.
Okay. Very cool. So it's really about finding a community and building that up around
Mhm.
yourself and entering into communities with others.
Right, right, exactly.
All right. So Florence Ann was talking about building village, creating village, or creating community. And she's going to go way more in depth into that in just a second. But I wanted to interject for a moment and just add my experience with community. When I was younger, I used to be a bit of a lone wolf. Like, I had friends in the neighborhood. So I wasn't like totally isolated, But at the same time, like when I went to high school, I was very shy and awkward. So I didn't join any clubs. I didn't join any sports teams. I just kind of kept to myself. So I didn't have a lot of high school friends. And the similar thing was when I went to college, the only thing I joined was a fraternity. And that was incredible because I got all these lifelong friends that are still my friends today. And as I get older, the more I realize, the more you join community, it's not only that you get to have friends around you or people that share common values with you. That's really important. But it's also like people that share common values, you're also working towards something together. So it's way easier to build towards something if you're working together in a community rather than trying to fly solo. And so I think for parents, it's great to get your kids involved in group activities and try and find their community, whether it's, Dungeons and Dragons or it's basketball or dance or, ballerinas class or whatever. It can be a whole host of things. And it's really a great idea just to get them involved so they can start getting used to this idea of community and how important it is. Because when you have a place where you feel safe, and you can be vulnerable and share openly and like no one's going to judge you, that's so powerful for like really helping kids become their true authentic selves. And it's great for parents and adults alike too. So if you are feeling isolated, if you're feeling like you're not part of a community, go find communities that like inspire you. I, as an adult, like I joined a rec volleyball league or a hiking club and a book club and an investing club. So I joined all these different clubs to align with my different interests. And along the way, not only did I make a lot of friends, but I found people that were more like me and helped supported me along my journey. So community is just so important. So I just wanted to take a moment to just tell you a little bit about my journey through community, just to add a little bit of context. But Florence Ann is about to dive deeper into building village and how you can go out and create your village that you need around you. So let's get back to it.
Very cool. And for parents that want to build a village for their families or for their children, obviously one way they could go out and hire a nanny if that's possible. But like, what are some other ways parents might be able to build villages if it's not like already built in like you had?
Right. Well, it's about looking around at your community and seeing, how you want to be a part of that. And if you are not part of a community, it's about building that. So for example, one of my good friends just moved to Texas and she left all her friends and family here in Chicago and didn't really know a whole lot of people moving out there to Texas. And she has found a new group of people, but it was because she put the effort in to make friends. She had her kids join, the different schools that they're in, of course, but then, extracurricular activities for them too. And then she joined a gym and, made a point of introducing herself to people and asking her husband to make introductions to, people at work. So it's about being aware of whatever it is that you're lacking or where you're not feeling as fulfilled and figuring out how to solve that problem. But I always say, I can give you directions to the village, but then once I give you these ideas or solutions, you have to drive there. I can't make you do it. I can't make you build that village. You have to do it for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I remember when I first moved to California. I'm from St. Louis, if you can see the arch there.
Yeah, there it is.
And I spent the first, 20 plus years of my life there. And then I just kind of moved to California for a job and I didn't know anyone. So I had to take the time, like you said, I joined rec volleyball leagues and I went in hiking groups and stuff like that, just to kind of get to know people. And it takes a while too. So I think it's people want it to happen right away, or at least I did, but right. You really need to keep putting in the effort.
Yeah, you do. That's exactly it. You have to keep putting in the effort. And that effort's going to look different depending on, depending on what feeds you, what nourishes you. And you have to, again, that takes some soul searching to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's see. So like, I know, you mentioned that you got to like identify where your issues are and then like, work towards finding and addressing solutions to that. And part of that, at least for me, a lot of times is I want to do it all myself, but I know you're a big advocate for asking for help. So why is
Yeah.
it so important to ask for help?
Asking for help, it's funny. It's a taboo thing. I think sometimes, people don't feel like they can, because if they do, then they're weak in some sort of way. And
Mhm.
that's not the case. I have trouble taking my own advice too sometimes, where I'll feel like I'm struggling with something and I don't want to reach out. And it's because I don't want to be embarrassed or don't want people to think I can't handle my life on my own or whatever it is. But I think that asking for help is really synonymous with building your village. That the whole point of having a village is so you don't feel like you are in it alone and that you have to have all the answers all the time. That we're supposed to learn from each other. We're supposed to grow, and we're supposed to grow from mistakes, or we're supposed to grow from these moments where we don't have the answer and seek the answer in different ways. So asking for help is really just, I think, a very common sense philosophy, but it is one of the hardest ones to apply.
Asking for help. That's definitely one that I struggled with in the past, and I still struggle with even today. It's one of those things where, like, I know that it's the right thing to do, but like Florence Ann was just talking about, there's parts of me that are like, oh, I'll look stupid or dumb or weak if I ask for help. And that's something that developed early on in my childhood, because I was like the intelligent one and in class, and like I thought if I ever had to ask for help, then it made me look not so intelligent, like dumb. And then that was like a blow to my ego, a blow to my identity, and I couldn't let that happen. So I'd work really hard to find the answer myself. But in a way, like, thankfully, I was born in the internet era where I can actually just hop online and find YouTube videos or information and all that stuff where, I'm actually getting help from other people. I just don't have to ask them directly, right? So it was like a nice little workaround for me. But sometimes, especially in the emotional realm, like if I'm having a tough time, there's just nothing better than just like asking a friend that I really trust, that I feel I can be safe and vulnerable with, and just asking them for help, just like, hear me out, can you support me in this situation? Or I'm finding more and more like business mentors, like someone that's like genuinely connected to you and knows, like someone that's knows me very well, can give me specific advice, but also has a lot of knowledge in ways that I can't just like look up on the internet. It's very specific, targeted advice. So like things like that are just, it's just so valuable to ask for help. And I know that it can be scary. I know that it's like, it's easier to be comfortable and safe and not have to look dumb or stupid, but I've always found when I am able to ask for help, when I'm able to step out of that, like, oh, it's a blow to my ego, that I'm able to get really valuable advice, or I'm able to get really incredible support. And things are like always better if I just ask for help. So, and believe it or not, my friends don't think less of me. My mentors don't think less of me. If anything, they respect me even more. So, for me, there's not a lot of downside to asking for help. So if you ever feel like you need to ask for help, if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't be afraid to just go out and do it with someone you trust. Hey, if you want to write me an email and ask me for help, I'm available. So make sure you're out and actively asking for help, because it's, like Florence had said, synonymous with building your village. All right, so I just wanted to say that for a moment. Let's get back to it.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, I know I have trouble asking for help, and it's something that I've been actively working on. I'm wondering, do you have any tips or strategies just to kind of get parents to ask for help if they're feeling resistance towards it?
Well, I think the first thing I'd like to say about that is when you need to ask for help, you don't want to necessarily think about how you're going to be able to repay that person. Because I
Mm.
know that is oftentimes what keeps people from wanting to ask for help, because they don't know when they're going to be able to reciprocate. So this tit for tat, this keeping score, that should not be part of your relationship building. Of course, you may feel personal guilt for not being able to reciprocate right away, but in life, I think it's a good rule of thumb that you don't give because you're looking for it to be given to you in return. You give because we're supposed to take care of each other. Now, there's a caveat to that. I certainly don't mean be a doormat. I certainly don't mean go out there and do everything for everybody, and then you're left feeling depleted and empty at the end of the day because you have no one supporting you or loving you or filling up your cup. So there are healthy boundaries to that for that. But this idea of not wanting to ask for help because you don't know how you're going to be able to pay that person back, that's only going to hurt you in the end, because in that moment you need that help for some reason. And I guarantee you the time is going to come in the future where you can pay it forward, as long as you are open to that and paying attention to that. And it's part of who you are, part of like who you are, what your human nature is.
That's really great advice. I found someone gave me an analogy a while back, and it was something along the lines of, I was like, oh, well, I don't know how to pay this person back, but they were like, well, it's almost like an energy exchange. So if someone does a deed for you or gives you a gift, just being a gracious receiver and letting them like feel your gratitude is like how you can close that exchange. It doesn't have to be like, oh, tit for tat. It can just be like a genuine thank you is like enough.
So I love this idea that Florence Ann is talking about not giving with expectation of something in return, but just giving for the sake of giving, because we're supposed to take care of one another. And I've noticed that a lot of times when I just give without worrying about what am I going to get in return, or if I ask for something without worrying about what I'm going to get in return, the whole interaction just feels cleaner. It feels better for both sides, really. And I actually did a little experiment one time. I actually entered into this like relationship with someone where that's what we were experimenting with. We actually set down rules where she could ask me for anything that she wanted, and I was not even allowed to receive any reciprocation at all. So like not even a thank you. So it was a test for me, because I wanted to see what it was like to truly give without anything in return, like not even a thank you. And it was a very interesting experiment, because I did get to learn that like you can find a lot of love in that space. But I like the counterbalance point that Florence Ann was also talking about, how like if you just give and give and give and give without any boundaries at all, what ends up happening is that you end up fully depleted. And that's how I ended up too. So I wasn't getting any reciprocation back, and I was giving and giving and giving, which was great in a lot of ways, but I ended up just like totally like just spent and used, and that part of it didn't feel very good. So I learned where my boundaries are, like when am I in a place where that I can actually give to someone. And it's really great to receive and fill up your cup, because then you're actually in a better position to keep on giving. So it may seem like a little counterintuitive. Sometimes I struggle with that too. Like, oh, I'm being selfish because I'm asking to receive and I'm trying to like get something. But it's more like I'm putting myself in a better position because my cup is full. Like my cup runneth over. I have so much excess that I can just give and give and give without depleting myself all the way down. So I really love what Florence Ann was saying about having boundaries around it too. Knowing when to say no. I'm not in a place where I can give, where be like avoiding just being a people pleaser, basically. Be like, because that's coming from a place of fear, like, oh, this person won't like me anymore if I don't give to them, and then that doesn't feel very clean. So I just wanted to add a few of my thoughts in on that subject, because that's another thing that I've kind of like struggled with a little bit. So I love that Florence Ann's like hitting on all my own things as well. And she's sharing great information with you parents about how you can kind of think of giving and building your village and building your community. All right, let's get back to it.
All right, so now I want to turn a little bit and talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. So right now we're still in a pandemic. We got the whole war in Russia and Ukraine. So there's like a lot of added stress in the atmosphere right now.
Right.
So do you have any suggestions for parents and families out there to kind of help relieve the stress and do self-care and all that good stuff?
Well, I think right now, as we're all trying to navigate what feels like a new world every day, or whatever the new normal is, communication is always key. I think regarding you and your spouse or partner, whomever it is that you're sharing your life with, or just in general in your village, communication to your village, communication to your children. The coping mechanisms, I think, to an ever-changing world like this can be difficult to apply when you feel, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, everyone felt scared and in a state of stress. So it's the idea of being able to take control in your life where you can, because when you feel out of control, I always say that there's somewhere in your life you can take control to find that balance, so, or that to ground yourself a bit. And so talking about, and this is why communication is so important, talking about how you're feeling with your friends and family, with your children, is the key to doing this, because then you're not suffering alone. Then other people are there to be able to relate to what it is you're going through. It's so funny to me that, like, on a global level, we have this enormous bond. Everyone's going to know who went through the pandemic, what it felt like when the world shut down. And, it's going to be, like people say, like where you were when JFK was shot, that's not something for our generation, but they'll ask where you were in 2020, when the kids are reading about this in the history books. But how we cope with it, I think, is being honest about our feelings and leaning on each other.
That's really true. I found that the more I'm honest and just vulnerable, like the better I feel, but it also kind of engenders trust and relationship with other people as well. Yeah. And how do you like share? Do you use friends? Do you use your parents? Do you even have maybe like a therapist or something, like all of the above?
It's funny that you ask about therapy. I never have gone to therapy, and it's never been a part of my life. And I actually just decided I was going to go, and it has nothing to do with the pandemic or anything like that. I think that it just came. I'm 36 years old. It just came about one day in the strangest of ways. I was watching TV, and this gal was going to her therapist, and I thought, what, that feels good. I think I kind of like that. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who is a therapist, and she gave me some recommendations. And when I met with the gal who is now going to be my therapist, we have not even started our sessions yet. She asked me why. And I said, I just kind of feel like there's not a lot of places in life you can be 100% honest and 100% yourself. Even with even with my boyfriend, he's never going to be 100% of me. He shouldn't want to.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I wouldn't want him to see. I don't want to see 100% of him either. But in therapy, I feel like that's a place where there's no judgment, and you can be yourself, and you can have these very candid conversations. And it's that one space in life where you can really just be authentically you, and it's for you too. Now, obviously, this is becoming more of a mental health, I guess, answer that I'm giving, but the ripple effect should be there about how it's going to help, your relationships going forward, or how you live your life. But therapy, I think, can come in a lot of different ways. I mean, yes, I'm going to have a traditional therapist now, but I felt that for me, therapy looked and felt different depending on what I needed. Maybe it was talking to my mom, or maybe it was going for a walk and just listening to music, or going for a drive, or journaling, or just having quiet time to myself, or going out with my friends and laughing because I forgot what it was like to use those muscles in my stomach. So I feel like therapy can be used in a lot of different ways. That word can be used in a lot of different ways other than the traditional way of counseling.
Well, true. And, as far as like having a traditional therapist goes, like I used to be like very resistant to it because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, if I have a therapist, that means there's something wrong with
Wrong
me.
with you. Right, right,
And
right, right.
and now I've come like the opposite. I'm like, man, if someone doesn't have a therapist, there's something wrong with them. Because I just feel like, oh, well, they're not really working on their stuff. Maybe they are, but I know if someone at least has a therapist, like they're going and actively trying to like work on all the stuff that they have coming up for them.
They're trying to better themselves. I think that that's wonderful. There's a saying that I love, that I'm becoming who I'm becoming.
Hmm.
That is, it's a constant evolution, that we never stop working on ourselves, or we shouldn't stop working on ourselves. I love also that saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
I love that as well. Again, challenging yourself and pushing yourself and admitting things to yourself about changes that need to be made, or dreams that you have, or goals. I think that's all important, and I think teaching our children that from a young age too, that we're supposed to be making mistakes, and we're supposed to be continuing to grow, and learning from our mistakes, learning from other people. I think that's something we have to learn in the sandbox, truthfully.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's big part of my mission is, I grew up and I was an engineer in other lives. So like I learned a lot about math and science and I loved
Yeah.
all that stuff. But then I got to this point in my life where I was struggling emotionally and I didn't really like where I was, but I didn't know anything about like how to handle my emotion. Like no one taught me that in school. And, so I had to go on this journey to kind of figure out like, how do I do emotional awareness? And I did journaling and meditation and I started talking to therapists and all this stuff. And I was like, well, wouldn't it be great if we just like destigmatized all that stuff and we taught this to our kids when they were very young? And that's
Right.
kind of how I started this show in a lot of ways and like started my business. So I totally agree with you on all that.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. That's a lot of work. What you know
Yeah.
that and you have to be proud of yourself for doing the work. I think that's as simple as we could say. Doing the work, I think, takes a lot of bravery.
So I wasn't really originally planning on talking to Florence Ann about therapy, but I'm kind of glad that the discussion took that turn because therapy is something that, has been very stigmatized, I feel like, in our culture. And I know growing up, I had like a lot of issues, emotional issues. I even was like depressed at certain times in my life. And I think I didn't want to go to a therapist. One, because I was like scared that I'd go to like a psychiatrist actually, and then they'd medicate me, and then I'd just be like a zombie for the rest of my life. And I didn't feel like I personally had like a chemical imbalance. Okay, what do I know? Maybe I do, but I don't know. I don't feel like it. And so that's what my thought process was. And also, it was also like, well, if I have to go to a therapist, then I can't deal with this on my own. Like I'm incapable of dealing. I need someone's help, and like that doesn't feel right either. Like it's admitting that I have a problem that I can't fix. And now my beliefs have like totally switched because there's something incredibly powerful about having an impartial third party just listening to what you have to say and their issues that are going on in your life, because they're not emotionally involved with like who you are. Like they're a therapist or a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever, and their job is to be impartial. So they have the ability to see things from that perspective that maybe you can't see, or maybe your loved ones can't see, because people that you trust, your friends you talk to, obviously talk to your friends, your parents, your village, build your village. But when people care about you and they have certain feelings towards you, there's just things that like that colors their perception of you. So you like are not fully unbiased, right? If someone really loves you, it's like they may not tell you things because they don't want to hurt your feelings. They may not tell you things because they don't want you to get upset with them. But a therapist, that's their job. So I've been in therapy for, let's see, like, oh, I wasn't there. I was in therapy for like 2 years, and then I've stopped, but I've recently, just been in the last couple of weeks, thanks partially to Florence Ann's interview, been looking to get back into therapy and find another therapist, because there's just something incredibly powerful about someone being like, hey, have you looked at this, and knowing that there's no emotional charge in it. So parents, if you're like feeling really stressed with parenthood and the pandemic and everything that's going on, then I highly recommend, if you can, to go seek out potentially therapy if you're feeling that like your friends and family and your village is maybe not enough, is not supporting you enough, your spouse is not supporting you enough, like they're supporting you but maybe not in the ways, all the ways that you need. Therapy can be a great answer, because it is stressful times. It's stressful times. And I just want to really destigmatize the idea that if you go to therapy, you're like broken, or you're like unfixed, you're like need to be fixed and you can't handle it yourself. Like none of that's true. None of that's real. None of that's a real story. So use that tool. And there's like great opportunities. Like you can get therapy a lot of times through health insurance, or like super cheap, if not, for free, through certain services. So you just got to go out there and check it out. So I just wanted to pop in and say I'm a big advocate for therapy now, and it's just a great way to work on your inner self and become like just like a better person who you are. Like another analogy that I really love is that like a rose growing into a rose, like just like before it's actually that beautiful flower, we never judge it or shame it for just being like a little bud or like just a little green stem, right? Like all the journey, the whole process is beautiful, all the way to actually the like beautiful rose part that we, like love to smell and look at. So all of it's beautiful. You're growing. It's a journey. So, all right, let's jump back to Florence Ann now. She's going to share some amazing resources with you if you want to explore any of these topics further, and she'll share where you can find her on the interwebs. So let's jump back for the final part of the interview with Florence Ann.
For sure. Yeah, it does take a lot of bravery to actually step into those uncomfortable feelings. And like you were mentioning, it's also really great to have like personally, like a third party person, like if it's a therapist, great, or if it's just someone that's like not super involved in your life, just to get your stuff out, and not in like a non-judgmental space, but with someone who's like not attached emotionally to all this stuff. There's just something really powerful about that, just like being witnessed and being able to get it out. For me, at least, it's like been really life-changing.
I agree. Absolutely.
All right. So, you worked as a nanny for, you said 15 years. So I imagine you worked with a lot of different families, a lot of different kids. So you kind of had this unique experience where you've been part of a bunch of different families. So I'm wondering, are there any like secret parenting hacks that you came across in all your time that like maybe apply to like all kids or most kids or anything like that?
Secret parenting hacks. I would say that parents should pay attention to the people that are helping you raise your children. And what I mean by that is, as a nanny, I saw a lot, I heard a lot, and your children tend to open up or have a different type of relationship with the nanny or babysitter than they do with the parent. And as the nanny, I had a different perspective and kind of inside view into the children than maybe necessarily the parents did. Not in a competitive way, not that these parents were in any way, shape, or form neglecting their children or weren't even present parents. They're amazing parents. But you see things sometimes the parents don't. And I think that being too proud to admit that as a parent is only going to, shoot you in the foot. You want those people that are in your children's lives to, I always like to say, be that soft place to land, or more people for them to love. Love is something that, we can't get enough of. If you can give your children more people to love in their life, that's wonderful. So don't be competitive about it, but learn from those people that are in your children's lives more about your child through them, because they're going to have a different relationship with them than you do. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing for your children to learn how to form relationships and trust with other people. And I think that it's also very cool if you can take a step back and see what you can learn from the people in your children's life about your children.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't experienced that as a tutor. Some of my clients I've been with for, 3, 4+ years. And yeah, I develop a relationship with their kids and in a way that's just different than like being with the parents. And they maybe will tell me things that they might not tell their parents. And then I can actually communicate that in my little write-ups about the lessons. Like, hey, here's what happened. We practice this math skill, this science skill, and your kid also mentioned this. So you might want to like have a talk with them about that, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm starting to view myself more as just like, instead of just a tutor, but like a mentor for these kids. So
great way to think of it.
It's yeah, I really love that what you said, like you got to think of like who you're bringing into your kids' lives. And I feel like, these families also start to view me as a mentor too, just because I bring like a not like positive presence to their kids' lives.
It takes a lot of responsibility to do that too. If you're going to be a mentor to children. I think I was always very aware when I was a nanny of how much responsibility I was taking on with these young lives and minds and hearts. And that's my message, I guess, for anyone who's in childcare, take it seriously. They are so impressionable. And, you want to do your best to give them the guidance and the safety that they deserve and need at that young age.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you probably feel the same way, but like those kids feel like, even though I'm not a parent, those kids feel like my kids, and I treat them like that. Like I want the absolute best for them. And yeah, I try and be like very cognitive of like what I'm saying, what I'm doing while I'm around them.
Sure. And you have to be. I think that's part of why parenting is so difficult. I think raising children in general is you don't want to say the wrong thing. You wonder how that's going to have a lasting impression. Is it going to mess them up? And so you as the adult have to do so much thinking and editing about what it is that you're going to say or how you're going to react. And that's a lot of emotional drain on someone when you're constantly trying to think about the words you're saying, how you say it, how it's going to affect someone. And I think that's a big challenge, especially when you're losing your temper or losing your patience. That's when you're not going to be so happy with your delivery on things. That's, I think, the true test too, is in those moments, those heated moments, those stressful moments, those passionate moments. How are you reacting and working on that reaction?
Absolutely. All right. So you've been giving a ton of great advice so far. And I'm just wondering, do you have any other wonderful words of wisdom for parents out there?
Well, my favorite quote is from Maya Angelou. She says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that in life, it is about how you make people feel. And as a parent, I think right now, when the world is going crazy and the world hurts and everything else, I think making sure that we're putting the human connection first and making sure that we're taking care of hearts first is the most important thing. So taking care of your own, taking care of your children's, taking care of your villages. Just if you can remember that how you make a person feel it can be a turning point in someone's life. It can be life-saving in someone's life. It can be a game changer. And it also can be the ripple effect, I think, that we all hope to be.
Beautiful, beautiful words of wisdom. Thank you. And we're getting to the end here. So do you have any like additional resources like websites, books, videos, anything like that you'd like to share if parents need to go deeper into these topics?
I'm very active on Instagram. So Florence Ann Romano, come follow me. I answer every DM, anything you might want to talk about. I can be that virtual villager for you. And my website, florenceann.romano. There's a ton of blogs on there. A lot of things that we talked about here today. I have blogs on, but also everything from, the baby stage to protecting your children with social media and technology, how to build your village. There's a chart there that helps you figure out how to build your village if you're looking to take that next step. So visit me on my website or Instagram, but I'm here for you in whatever way I can be helpful.
Amazing. All right. Well, Florence Ann, that's all the questions I had for you. Thank you so much for coming on Pandemic Parenting. It's been a pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Finally, it's time for the wrap up recap. Yes. All right. So what did we talk about on the show today? We talked about building your village, building community. And the main takeaway there is that you got to put in the effort, right? So we've talked about some ways you can build it for your kids, you can build it for yourself, but the main thing is you got to go out there and make it happen. You got to put in the effort and the time to build the village that you want. You got to find ways that you can provide to other people, and then what things that you need from others. And then you go out and you find those things and you put it together and you have yourself a nice little village, a nice little community. And it takes time too. So I know for myself, I wanted it overnight, but it took me almost like a year after I moved to LA to kind of find community and people and friends and all that good stuff. So give it a chance to build out that community and build out your village. We also had a nice little mental health tangent, which I really enjoyed because, as you know, I am a big advocate of therapy. I've been doing it for the last couple of years, and I think it's really powerful just to have that like third party person that's maybe not directly emotionally involved in your life to give you a really clear perspective on things. So I personally take part of it myself, and I highly recommend it. And then lastly, Florence Ann talked about just paying attention to the people in your life that are helping raise your kids, because they may have like special bonds that maybe you don't have with your kids. And, obviously nothing supersedes a parent's bonds with their children, mom and dad bond with their kids. But there's like maybe a trusted teacher, or maybe a trusted tutor, or a trusted nanny like Florence Ann. And I've found that like oftentimes kids will share things, especially teenagers, when they're like in that phase where they like just hate their parents and don't want anything to do with them. Like they'll often share things with me that maybe they wouldn't share with their parents. And it's good to develop those relationships and show your kids that it's good to have relationships with trusted adults and be able to share and talk about things with them. So it's not a competitive thing. It doesn't take away from your relationship as the parents. It's just another form of village, really, right? Village. And so I really love that Florence Ann was talking about like you can use those types of people in your life to also get another like different types of insights into your kids. Because like me, I'm always sharing what kids tell me, and I share with their parents. Like, yeah, maybe you want to check in with them on that. So it's another avenue to kind of like get into your kids' head and build a deeper relationship with them. So that's all we got on the show today. As usual, if like all the links of resources will be in the description if you want to check out Florence Ann more. And it was such a pleasure having her on. And as always, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching. I love you all. And until next time, this has been Pandemic Parenting. Take it easy.